Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate, a journey of emotional resilience. I'm Brandon, your host, back here with Michael on a Friday morning. How you doing today, Michael?
Fantastic as always. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And today is our last wellness challenge of the month. And the challenge this week is going to be mindfulness. And when I say that, what I mean is just being really aware of the moment you're in. And you can do that in a lot of different ways, but what we're talking about is being able to slow yourself down, being able to stop and be able to understand what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. All your attention is on whatever it is that is happening right then. Whether you're sitting at home with your family, whether you're out enjoying a concert, whether you're at the movie theater, whether you're with your friends and laughing. Really being able to just put everything else aside, stop thinking about yesterday, stop thinking about tomorrow, and just enjoy that moment that you're in. And I know that can be tough, especially nowadays with the cell phones in our pockets and the information and the ability to connect all over the world every single second of our lives. I think that makes it harder to stay in a moment, but it's a really important concept to add happiness to your life. So what are your thoughts on staying in those moments and being in those moments?
Yeah, I think that's very important in life, especially when we're trying to be successful in what we're doing. So if we're, for our example, at a soccer game and, it's a big game, but we're thinking about the test that we didn't study for, chances are we're not being very mindful of that moment, and then performance will lack and we might not have the game that we would have had we had that focus in the moment. And for me, kind of taking that step back for trying to focus on being stuff at the moment has been super important for me, especially in my career. When I'm trying to explain a product to a customer, I'm trying to explain the benefits of maybe this specific thing that they're looking for. If I'm thinking about anything but that, my thought process goes out the window. I'm not able to speak clearly. All of a sudden, the confidence starts to drop, and maybe I stutter a few times, and now I'm not so confident, and then they're not that confident in me, and all of a sudden that type of thing falls, and then I'm not able to stay in the moment. So being mindful of that has been super important for me in just my work life, but also at home. You got to be attentive to your family. You got to make sure that if you're at home playing board games with the kids, you're not thinking about the 14 things that went wrong at work and the 2 things you have to do tomorrow, trying to still manage that time. No, take a step back, pause, focus on them, be there in that moment. I think that's the challenge for this week that's so cool for me, because I'm not always mindful in the moment, and I've caught myself several times lacking that mindfulness and then finding myself in a situation where I didn't pay enough attention to what I was doing, and now I kind of have to deal with the repercussions of that.
Yeah, and this challenge is important for two of the reasons you just said, right? And I think we'll kind of focus on that being in the moment with people and everything in a moment, but I want to go back to the performance thing you just talked about, because this is something I think that we don't always think about. But when we're performing, whether that could be a game, and I used to say this when I was coaching too to players, but it could also be like a test. Could be like you said. I think your example of selling that car or breaking down what people have to do in that moment, it comes across more confident and knowledgeable when you're focused just on what you're doing. Just like in a game, if we're focused on that end result, or we're focused on something other than the game, we're probably going to mess up some of our passes a little bit more. We're probably going to mess up some of our first touches a little bit more, because we're not just feeling ourselves in that moment. We're not just flowing in that moment. And so when you're in the moment and you're performing, whether it's work, sports, drama, instrument, whatever it may be, it adds to that performance, because your focus and your attention is only on that. Just like a test. I was a bad test taker because I was always worried about that end result of the test. Oh, I'm gonna fail. It's gonna affect this. It's gonna affect that. It's gonna be a domino effect, and I'm gonna end up dropping out of college and moving back into my parents' basement, which is exactly what I did. Um, But when you can just focus on one question at a time, your mind is clear for that one question, right? And you break everything down like that. That's what being in the moment is. It's being able to break down everything around you into a single moment and enjoy that single moment, or put your focus and your attention in that single moment, and kind of going into the, family thing or friend thing, it's going to add to relationships. When we're having a conversation and we're sitting here talking to each other and paying attention to each other, it adds more to where if, one of us were, texting off to the side while we were trying to talk, or if my attention was over here trying to pop back up and have that conversation with you, it's not going to be a real productive conversation, and probably going to feel a little slighted if we're doing that to each other in those moments, right? And that's the same thing when you're in a person, obviously definitely with your significant other. But I think your kids can feel that as well. And I know I'm guilty of it at times. I'm doing something and I don't fully pay attention to what's happening. But I think that's a really big part of this challenge that I really take seriously as well, is just saying, all right, hey, my kid wants my attention. What I'm doing on my phone right now is not that important. Or what I'm looking at on the TV is not that important. Or me just wanting to shut off and rest, not that important when my kid wants my attention in that moment. So I think that's part of this challenge, right? Is when you're in the moment with those people, be in the moment with those people.
Absolutely. I think that having that direct attention to what's happening in that moment, like you just spoke about, and it could just be a conversation like we're having, actively listening to what the other person says is crucial. One, it's going to make them feel good because you're paying attention to what they're saying. And two, you can actually contribute in a meaningful way to the conversation that you're having. And for me, that's a direct example of exactly how my conversation goes when I'm sitting down with a customer who's trying to buy a vehicle. If they're saying I need, 3 rows because I have a large family and I want leather seats, preferably with like a sunroof. Cool. If I pull up a 2015 four-door sedan with hatchback with 1.5 rows, clearly wasn't paying attention. Now they don't trust in me. They don't trust in the company. They're not sure if I was even paying attention. And that's where I lacked mindfulness in that moment. I was not attentive to what they needed. I didn't pay attention. So I didn't contribute in the right way. And that's just no work example. It's a lot of times where it's at home. I've caught myself doing it where my fiance is having a conversation with me and I'm listening, but maybe I am on my phone. And like you said, that's not that important. But I don't, I guess I don't realize that quick enough sometimes. So my, I guess my responses that are typical, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, babe, gotcha, heard you, yep. Are you listening to me? Yes, yeah, yeah. Sorry, what were you saying? You know what I mean? And so it's stuff like that where you don't realize it maybe until you get called out on it, and sometimes getting called out on it is what you need, especially if you have a good, healthy relationship with your significant other. But the challenge I think that I like about this week is maybe realizing that you're in that moment sooner, or when you're approaching a conversation before you go into it or before you go into an interaction. Today, I'm going to make sure that I pay attention specifically to what's happening right here in front of me in this moment, in this few minutes of conversation or video chat or social gathering. I want to be directly involved with what's happening, what's going on, and actually contribute to it in a meaningful way, as opposed to just saying I'm there, pretending to be there, kind of going through the motions. So I like this challenge because it's going to force me to maybe come out of what I'm used to doing in a comfort level and actually make sure I'm not just giving half effort to the people I love.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you just mimic the conversation perfectly with my wife and I sometimes with, like, oh yeah, yeah, yep, all right, yeah, yeah. What did I just say? What was that again? That whole type of thing. And it just, when you're doing that, when you're actually paying attention, the other person can feel it, right? I like that you said actively listening, looking them in the eye, engaging not only with your words, but also your body language, your tone, all those type of things, to really be in that moment and show that person like you were really paying attention. And so when you're mindful of those in those relationships, it just adds to them, right? It just builds into it. So definitely, listen to that part of the challenge that Michael just said, like going into that conversation when you're saying to your friend, hey, let's go hang out. When you go hang out, hang out. Don't just sit there next to each other on your phone the whole time. Or when you're engaging with somebody, just be intentional about that. And I think another way that we can be be mindful of it. And I always think about this, maybe so in bigger gatherings, but I think it applies in smaller moments as well, is we always want to capture a moment, right? We always want to capture a moment and save it for later. And I watch a lot of soccer, obviously, and watching games, and you see people in the crowd just the whole time, with that phone up recording. I'm sure you see it at any sporting event, you see it at every concert, anything that's live like that you watch, you see it. And I'm always baffled because it's like, yeah, I understand you want to capture that moment and save it, but you're missing out on that moment. I think one of the most exciting soccer games I ever went to was USA England back in, I don't know, it was the early 2000s. And I watched the crowd almost just as much as I watched the game, because the English crowd, and they were singing and they were into it. And it was just something I had to experience it. And if I was filming the game, I would have missed out on that aspect of that experience. And so I think another part of this challenge can be, instead of always looking to try to capture a moment for later, just enjoy that moment while you have it, right? And I know I'm guilty of that sometimes, where I don't take enough pictures of my kids and of my wife and our kids, because I'm just like, I want to fully be there in that moment. So I'm not always like, oh, I want to take this picture. And so I think there's a good balance, kind of going back to our conversation on Wednesday. There's a good balance to that, but definitely, like, when you're in a special moment like that, have that special moment and enjoy that special moment.
Yeah, I like that. Cherish that time, whether it's significant other, along a friend that you don't see often, or even a friend you see every day. Just be in the moment. If it's a concert, if it's a sporting event. Funny story. I was watching the USA Jamaica game recently, the semifinal of the Nations CONCACAF tournament, and it was 5 minutes in stoppage time. It went out for a corner. Legit, I just turned off the game. I was like, man, there's nothing more here. It's a classic game. We're losing 1-0. It's going to be a crazy upset. Didn't think anything about it. 2 days later, I see a notification on my phone, USA versus Mexico in the finals. And I was just completely shocked. I was like, there's something wrong there. Looked it up. Sure enough, not only did we score, but we ended up winning in overtime, and it was a crazy win. But I lost track of that moment because I just assumed that everything was going to be how it typically is, especially in a sporting event where the writing's been on the wall for the majority of the game. Jamaica scored on us so freaking early
Yeah,
that you just knew that we weren't ever going to get to score a goal unless it was in the
terrible,
last
terrible.
second of the game. And sure enough, as I clicked it off, we scored. And I think that just goes back to your point of being in the moment, but not to record it that you can relate later. Of course, you want to capture it. You want to be able to look back. Wow, that was an amazing moment. But is it not better to experience that moment live than having to remember it on the video or on the camera? That's the one thing that I relate to a lot, because I do get a fair amount of videos and pictures, but maybe there's a few of those times where I just need to stop that, focus, and enjoy exactly what's happening, be very, very in the moment, because I think that that's more satisfaction than I'll get. Of course, a video is memories forever, but there's also memories up here, and being there, I think, can be the biggest difference in how much of an impact that event might have had for you personally.
Yeah, no, and I think that's exactly what it does. And it's so funny talking about that game. I did the same thing. The US got the corner, man, and my dad had came over that night to watch the game. And I'm walking away. I'm like, I'm pissed off, and I'm so frustrated because it never seemed to be that we were going to get back in that game. And I just hear my dad yelling. I'm like, no way. Walk back in there. Sure enough, man. So that was exciting. But I think that's, again, it's just what we're going to with, like, when you have special moments like that, just enjoy it for what it is, right? I mean, my dad came over to watch the game, and I'm definitely more emotional. So I'm upset. I'm frustrated watching watching that whole game, and just being in that moment of my dad being there. My kids probably still being out, and those type of things. It's special, and I know those moments aren't always going to be there. So that's why, like, just to take a step back and realize, like, hey, I'm not gonna get this forever. So I'm gonna enjoy it right now while I have it. And then, the last part of this challenge, that I think we can challenge people to do is just really experience every day, with all your senses, right? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What are you smelling? What are you tasting? And really take in all those little things, those that smell, right? The smell is our greatest connection to memory or something like that people say. And when you smell that cooking that takes you back to when you were a kid, or you smell that smell that takes you back to a favorite holiday or a favorite moment, enjoy that for a minute. Just stop and soak that in, right? When you see something that just kind of you awe in it, whether that's obviously going to college in West Virginia, we saw a lot of beautiful sights, right? Driving through the mountains, going through the mountains, sunrises, sunsets. There's so much beauty in those moments to just stop and enjoy it, because it's not something you're always going to get to see. And so I think that can be part of it too, is just like, kind of stop yourself and notice, like, what am I feeling physically or emotionally right now? What am I smelling? What am I tasting? Take that extra, savor that extra bite of your favorite food that you're enjoying, whatever that might be. Really soak in those moments with all your senses, because for one, not everybody's lucky enough to experience life with all their senses. So if you do have those abilities, take them in, enjoy it. And that's another way we want to challenge you over this next week.
Yeah, I like that. I like that what you tied it into just our ability to perceive the world around us. We have a very unique gift that allows us to enjoy and relish in certain moments and create long-term, lifelong memories and experiences. And like you said, it is very special, and especially when it comes to family and parents. In our case, where now we're getting to 30, going on 40, parents are equally getting older. So some of that stuff is going to be less frequent. And as stuff happens, as in, my own experience where at 55, my dad had to have open heart surgery. And, going through that, I was more in the moment when I'm thinking back on it, because we were almost forced to be. But at the same time, I loved his approach and mentality. It almost reassured me, guaranteed that he was going to get through it. He just looked, he's like, just another day and I'll be out. I'll be fine. Don't worry about me, guys. Everything's going to be great. And just that type of, because he was being mindful in that moment. He knew us as a family, we were just concerned, as we should be. It's a very serious procedure. It's not something that you just go in for a quick checkup and everything's fine. So for him to be as mindful as he was, to let us know, look, he knows the risk. Anything could have happened, but nothing happened other than what was supposed to happen. And that helped us learn that, hey, take those moments, be present in them, and enjoy whether it's an enjoyment type of thing or just, the passion. Just make sure you're present and you're not on your phone while a family member's in the hospital. Just be there for them, around them. That's the type of in the moment that I learned when I was younger that really just kind of resonates with me now, and I've helped keep in my life, because that's a pretty traumatic thing to go through as a person or their family. And I'm grateful that, he's still doing well. But guess what? Another 20 years when I'm 55, we may not have as many opportunities. So cherish, relish in the moment, take the opportunities you can to see your family, to see your friends, soak up those experiences, whether you can see, whether you can hear, if you can taste, if you can touch, whatever senses you can have that you have access to that you can use them. We challenge you to do as much as you can to improve how you take in each moment, because you just might find that each of those little moments is really what makes life so worth living and fighting for.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this challenge is all about, and so share those experiences. What experiences did you have today with your five senses? What experience did you have today, with a friend, a colleague, a family member that you were able to really put yourself in that moment? Or if you got to go experience something big, what was that like when you just put that phone away? Maybe you got your couple pictures or your one quick recording, and then you were able to just enjoy everything around you. What was that like? But that's where mindfulness can add to a greater level of happiness, because when you're present in those moments, you feel more alive, you get more out of it. It benefits your life in so many different ways. And it's all about that mindset, to be able to shut off the worries from yesterday and the stress that's coming tomorrow, and just say, hey, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to enjoy this, and I'm going to be present, and I'm going to feel it out, and it's going to be special. And so I think being in the moment, being mindful is something that we can all do a little bit more in a world that's go, 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 do 100 things at one time. Nah, just stop, relax, see where you're at, feel where you're at, enjoy where you're at, and then tomorrow will come as well. So that's the challenge this week. We want to push you guys to do it. Like I said, share those experiences in the comments section down below. Let us know what's working for you, what's maybe even what's not working for you, but just your thoughts on what mindfulness has brought to you as well. And that wraps up our March wellness series. That's pretty exciting, huh?
Yeah, it was a short but long month, I guess, if that makes sense. It came quick. I've been doing my best to stay consistent with the challenges. I hope everybody that's been tuning in has been as well. It was a pretty unique thing that we tried here this month to really try to get some more activity and build a community. So if you haven't been participating, it's not too late to start. This is a perfect one to get going if you haven't been, and if you have, thank you. Thank you for participating. Thank you for being a part of the journey that we're trying to bring to the world. And let's have a great week. Let's let this challenge be present in our minds every day this week and see what types of things that maybe we can capture without having to capture it, and then we'd share that with everybody else.
Perfect. Perfect. And it's been like you said, it's been a good month. It's great challenges that we had, something that we can continue to do as we go forward in life. And then really excited about next month's series. So make sure you tune in next week to see what April's going to be all about. I think it's going to be a really fun one with some details that we're going to go into and some different topics we're going to discuss. So keep joining us, like, subscribe, comment. Like I said, like we always say, kind of jump in, join us in this conversation, in this journey. And we're looking forward to going into our third month now, which is unbelievable. It's a lot of fun. And we're excited to see where this continues to take us. So have a great rest of your day. Good weekends. This has been Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate. We'll see you next week.